Hey everyone, John from Bike Fit Advisor. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to do a bike fit on myself. I almost never get to take a look at myself while I ride, and so and I've done some checking of my fit in the past using the technology that I have, but it's not the easiest thing to do, and I often need to employ some help, someone to kind of run the computer, and it's just not something that happens very often. Because I've gotten a bunch of comments in some of the videos that, my fit looks terrible, or why do I have so many spacers here, or my saddle height looks awful. And just to kind of make it clear, like, none of the bikes that you see me on are actually mine. These are all just bikes at my studio that are for sale, essentially. And so I'm just using what I have around. That's why it kind of changes. I think I probably videoed through, there's probably 5 or 6 different bikes at least that I've shot in videos. So what I'm going to do is actually, even though this isn't my bike, I'm going to do a complete bike fit for me on this one. So I'm going to get changed and get dotted up and all that, and we'll get going. Okay, so as usual when I do a fitting, I always take 2 measurements on each side. So the 2 columns on the right are the right side, 2 columns on the left are the left side. And let me break this down while I go to the saddle pressure. I'll break down the infrared data. Basically what it says is that my right ankle has more motion in it, about 6 or 7 degrees. Let's actually remember here. Oh, actually it's more than that, about 7 or 8 degrees. And I also have significantly more right knee extension too. My right knee is extending to within 32 degrees from full extension. My left is at 39 degrees. I get a couple of measurements here, like where my knee is relative to my feet, telling me that my right hip might be a little further forward. And this is definitely confirmed with some other measurements down here where we kind of compare the hip and the wrist positions. So my right hip does appear to be sitting a little further forward on the saddle. My hips are a significant distance behind my feet, maybe a little bit more than I would normally expect or what I'm used to. And then the final thing that really stands out in the infrared, and there's other things on here, but these are the highlights, is that my left knee is tracking out. So you can kind of see down here, this is my right knee path. It's not perfect. I've got a fairly linear. The green is the downstroke, a fairly linear downstroke, but I've got a little hitch going on where I cross on the recovery. But my left is drifting out to the side, and it's never really done that before. So I'm kind of curious what's going on. So let's go back to saddle pressure. Most of my pressure is in the back. That looks good. I have a high pressure here, 1,015 milli, 16 millibar. Not terrible. This makes it look like my right hip is sitting further back, and actually I'm not sure that Yeah, sometimes I don't think you can read this as concretely as some people might like to. I tend to coordinate. That's why I coordinate the data between the infrared and this. But sitting relatively even. These are the max pressures. But when I look at, there's the mean pressures, and you can kind of see how the mean pressure is pretty even. Evenly spaced as far as one's not significantly further in front. So, but there's definitely, like I said, there's definitely something going on here to kind of create this different loading pattern. And I'm shifted, it looks like, to the right as far as this is concerned. Let me go back to the infrared and just double check a couple of measurements here. See if I'm getting any indications that I'm sitting off to one side a little bit more. And I'm not getting a bunch. Let me see here. A small amount, maybe. Yeah, I'm getting a couple of measurements telling me I'm maybe sitting a little bit further to the right. Okay, but that's interesting because if I'm sitting further to the right here, that should give the right hip an easier, or the right leg an easier reach to the pedals, and it should cause that leg to actually be potentially bent more at the bottom of the pedal stroke, not straightening more like it is. So that's kind of curious. I'm going to have to take a look at a few things. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that I set my saddle height to pretty much where it's been for a number of years. And granted, I haven't been able to ride as much as I wanted to this summer, but there must be some other things going on because I wonder if I need to get back to some different exercises or something. But we'll take a look here. So what I think I'm going to do is, where I'm going to start is I'm going to lower the saddle a little bit. I'm going to change the tilt. And it may be that this saddle isn't the right shape for me. It might be kind of pushing me a little bit in one direction. I tend to not ride a saddle that's crowned like this. I tend to use one that is generally a little flatter through the top. So I'm going to stick with this for now and just change its position a little bit, and I'm going to double check my cleat position, and then I'm going to take another round of data and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so this is the second look at my bike fit here. This is the second round of data after I lowered the saddle, moved it forward a little bit. Not much, actually mostly lowered it and then changed the tilt to a little flatter posture. I still have a 6 or a 7 degree knee extension discrepancy. My right knee is still straightening about 6-7 degrees more than the left side. And now, just for reference, these are flipped. The two columns on the right here are the left side, and now these on the left are the right side. I know it's kind of confusing, but that's just the way this thing pushes data. So I've still got that difference. It's a little better. I went from, like a roughly, if you're averaging it out, like 7 or 8 degree difference to about a 6 or 7. So it's improving, but some other good signs though are that my ankle movement is a little bit more even. I'm getting indications that my hips are sitting a little bit more evenly as well. And so I can double check those, like I said, a couple of places. And yeah, sure enough, I'm, according to some of these measurements, pretty well spot on as far as my hip placement goes. One thing I want to point to is that if we look at now, here's the knee pads. And so again, these are the right, and then over here are the left. You can kind of see this one little outlier. That's because actually I had my 11-year-old was running the computer for this, and he accidentally hit the store or the record button just a little bit too soon, and we picked up that outlier, and it sort of threw off some of the knee data on this side. So like you can come up here and see the knee angle, like this tilt that it's saying that this knee is moving away from the bike at. This one, it says 11 degrees here because it averaged that little outlier in there. So we're going to kind of take this far right column, which is again is on the left side. We're going to take it with a grain of salt. But if we look at it, you kind of notice compared to the previous measurements, the previous visuals here, this left knee, it's kind of closed up a little bit, and the right knee has kind of gotten a little bit noisier. So let me pull up, I'll pull those up in another box so you can see them. So here's where we started. Here's the left knee. This is the first recording. And you can see, you know, it's a little more distinct gap in here, a little bigger gap in there, and a much tighter on the right knee. And now if we go to today's measurements, let me switch over to those. You can see now again, a little tighter on the left, again, ignoring that little outlier there. A little tighter on this left knee, and definitely again, a little bit more noise, a little messier on the right knee. Now, I'm not terribly worried about that actually, just because it does appear that I'm sitting a little more squarely. If both knees were getting noisier and my hips were sitting worse, then I would worry a little bit. But because I'm sitting more squarely, because my knee extension, while it's not a huge amount better, it's trending in the right direction. I'm going to actually kind of forgive some of this knee noise on the right side. I'm okay with that. We're throwing a lot at the knee, and it's obviously some things are changing, and sometimes it takes, and I should say often it takes it some time to adapt. So I'm okay with that as long as I'm sitting more squarely and things are evening out. So if we go to saddle pressure here, there's the new saddle pressure, significantly better. You can see, see these black squiggly lines on here. That sort of tracks the points of the pelvis, and it's a lot tighter, a lot cleaner movement. You can see it almost resembles a little infinity symbol or a figure eight, and definitely a little more even pressure. I don't have really much of anything in the middle here, and not much even in front. So much better as far as that goes as well. This definitely confirms that we're sitting a little more evenly. We can go to mean pressure or average pressure again, and again, really even placement for that. We can go to do some fun. This doesn't really necessarily mean anything, but it's kind of fun. We can play with a three-dimensional image of the pressure, and I still have, you know, a little bit more loading here on that right side. But again, overall, doing better. So I'm okay with that. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm not a huge fan. I've kind of come to the decision that if this were my bike and I was going to keep it, I'm not a huge fan of this saddle. So I'm going to go ahead and change it to something I know that I probably will handle a little bit better. And I think I want to change the reach of the bike. I feel too upright. I tend to favor a little more upright road position because I tend to mountain bike more than I road bike. But I'm a little more upright than I want to be. So I'm going to change the stem. I think it'll help me balance on the saddle a little bit better too. So I'm going to make a couple more changes. We're going to change the seat, and I'm going to change the stem. And I think I'll take one more shot and one more saddle pressure, and we'll see where we're at then. I think after that I should be pretty close, but we'll see. There's a little better. You can kind of see the crowning, the roundedness of it. So we're going to switch from that, and I'm going to go to this right here. If only it were that easy. Okay, so we changed the stem and the seat and just recorded the right side. I just wanted to see where we were, and I thought I'd check in here. And there's a pretty big change. My knee extension went from 33, which you see over here, kind of pushes the data to the right. I was at 33. There was still that big difference with the left side. Now I'm at 36, 38, so around 37, let's say. And everything else is, roughly unchanged, or at least is as expected. There are no big surprises here. It appears as if my hips are kind of in the same spot relative to my feet, or you might call it like the same position in space. If we look at kind of the knee motion, here's the old ones over here on the right. These are the new, and I have another outlier here. This is maybe one of the reasons why you shouldn't try and do a bike fit on yourself is, again, I have an 11-year-old running the computer and watching me, and so I'm not policing me, and I kind of forgot. And I think what I did here is I briefly let go of the handlebar with my left hand, even though I was recording the right side. But it kind of threw my right knee out for a pedal stroke or two, and it recorded that. But if we kind of take a look, I kind of return to this kind of quieter knee position here, knee movement. Nothing else really stands out as hugely. There's no big negatives here. If we go to saddle pressure now, there's the saddle pressure getting, pretty even. Again, I kind of have, it's a little erratic here because of the new saddle. As far as these black squiggly lines, it's not quite as uniform, but definitely pressure is evening out in a pretty profound way. You can tell there's more pressure. It's a flatter saddle. It's a harder saddle, but that's never really bothered me. I don't really have too many complaints when I'm on a saddle like this. This isn't my favorite in the world, that's for sure, but it's a reasonably good one. So again, because I had such a big change in the knee motion here and knee extension, I'm going to just reshoot that left side one last time just to verify things. Okay, so here we go. Last one. We'll go to back up to the top here so you can see the main thing I was looking at here was my knee extension, and sure enough, my left hasn't changed that much. I'm about 40, 41 it's showing, but look at my ankle range. I'm actually going through a little bit more ankle motion, so that I think when my ankle sort of settles out, I think it's feasible that this would drop just a little bit, maybe to 39, 38, something like that, and that really puts me in the ballpark now, even with the right side. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. We already done the saddle pressure. I'm still sitting, there's confirmed just by taking the second round of measurements that I'm sitting pretty square. If we look, it's kind of confirming a couple of different spots here. Again, locating my hip and my wrist together, kind of coordinating those two measurements. And then also if we look at where my knee is relative to my feet, it's pretty close on each side as well. Not much difference in a lot of the lateral placements, so I think I'm getting a lot more even. Now, this is not, all this is in flux a little bit. That's why I think this is messy. I mean, it's always messy like this. It's why, here, like my ankle is having a hard time on the left side now, is trying to figure out what it wants to do, and it's basically my body is trying to cope with all these changes to the bike. So this is going to continue over the next couple weeks. And if I continue to ride this bike, I'll just keep fitting it a little bit better, and I'll kind of keep moving down this path. And I think I'm headed the right direction. The best way to tell it would be to ride for a little while, come back in and retest and see where I'm at then, and then make further decisions. Do I need to change bar position again? Do I need to change saddle position again? Something like that. But right now, I'm pretty happy with where this is. It feels pretty comfortable, but the objective data kind of backs things up. Oops, wrong one. There we go. With the saddle pressure, that looks pretty. I'm pretty happy with the evenness of that. I'm not really worried about the amount of pressure at this point. 1300 millibar back here is a lot different than 1300 millibar up further on the saddle. So that's what we'll do. I'll ride this for a bit and then retest and see where I'm at in a few weeks. If you have any questions about this, put them in the comments below. And any thoughts? If you've had a bike fit, has it gone this way? Has it been similar? Has it been dissimilar? That's it for this video. Thanks everybody. I will see you on the next one.